This video is sponsored by Brilliant. Combination locks are a type of lock that doesn't require a key. Instead, they open by inputting a specific sequence of numbers. While this might sound like a modern invention, given how passwords dominate today's digital age, the origins of combination locks stretch back centuries. In fact, a 12th century safe from the Seljuk period featured one of these locks. The earliest known example, however, comes from a Roman tomb in Athens, Greece, proving that the idea has been around for thousands of years, much like pin tumbler locks. Essentially, the concept of passwords in our digital systems has roots in the ancient principle of combination locks. We are going to look at three common types of combination padlocks. The one in the middle allows you to change its password, but the other two come with preset codes that you need to memorize. Let's begin with this digit padlock. It is made up of number buttons ranging from 0 to 9. To open it, you press the correct digits of 4 or 5 buttons and then slide this knob to the right to release the shackle. To close it, push the shackle back in and reset the buttons by pressing them from behind. However, you can't reset the numbers without closing the shackle. This means that during the unlocked state, the buttons remain exposed, which is a design flaw. Someone could easily observe or photograph the button positions when you're not around. Now let's take a look inside this design. The body is made of cast aluminum, and the two halves are joined by riveting 3 rods on one side. Inside, the shackle is held under tension by a spring and secured by a small tooth protruding from a U-shaped locking bar. At the bottom of this locking bar, there is another tooth held in place by a trigger. To open the lock, you push the trigger to the right, which releases the locking bar and allows it to move upward, freeing the shackle. The locking bar can only move up when the correct buttons are pressed. If the buttons are unpressed or in the wrong positions, some of them will block the locking bar at its teeth. Each button has a cutout or gate that allows the teeth to pass when aligned correctly. When the correct button is pressed, the gate aligns with the tooth, allowing the bar to move. If the wrong button is pressed, the gate does not align and the tooth is blocked. This lock uses 2 types of buttons. The ones that are meant to be pressed to open the lock have their cutouts near the top and align with the tooth when pressed. Let's call these true buttons. The ones that are not meant to be pressed have their gates aligned in the unpressed position and will block the tooth if pressed. Let's call these false buttons. For example, a lock with the pin 1, 2, 3, 4 will have true buttons at 1, 2, 3, and 4, while the rest are false buttons. Similarly, a lock with the pin 24790 will have true buttons at 2, 4, 7, 9, and 0 with false buttons elsewhere. By using a combination of true and false buttons, manufacturers can create various codes for different locks. Let's see how someone might pick this type of lock. The spring that pushes the shackle outward when the lock is opened also provides tension when the trigger is pushed to the right. Without this spring, a lockpicker would need to manually pull both the shackle and the trigger, making picking slightly harder. But in this case, the spring does the work. When the locking bar is under tension, the teeth on the bar push against the buttons. Since the false buttons are already aligned with the teeth, they don't resist movement. However, one of the true buttons will offer more resistance than the others, making it harder to press. Once pressed, it will also resist being pushed back up because the tooth is already caught in the gate. For the false buttons, since the teeth are already inside their gates, you can feel resistance at the start of the button press. True buttons, on the other hand, will press smoothly until the tooth catches in the gate. By carefully feeling for these differences, a lockpicker can identify the true buttons and open the lock in under a minute. If you're considering using one of these locks, think about what you're securing and who might try to access it. For something like locking up your kids' toys, it's fine. But for anything requiring serious security, this type of lock is not a reliable choice. Now let's move on to the next type of number lock. This design is commonly used for bike locks, with smaller versions appearing in luggage locks and small key storage boxes. It features multiple number rings, which must be rotated to the correct digits to open the lock. Like the previous lock, this one also operates using teeth and gates. The teeth are located on the shackle, while the gates are found inside the rings. The shackle can only be released when the gates align perfectly with the teeth. However, if the gates were fixed to the number rings, it wouldn't be possible to change the combination. To understand how it works, let's look inside. As with the previous lock, the body is made of aluminum, with two halves joined by 4 rivets. The number rings are held in place by a spring that keeps them stable. Inside each number ring is another ring, which contains the gate. The outer and inner rings are connected via these ridges. The shackle has 5 teeth, 4 corresponding to the rings, and 1 at the top that acts as a stopper. A spring at the end pushes the inner rings upward, which serves a specific purpose. If you examine the inner ring, you'll notice 4 ridges, one of which is longer and positioned at the same angle as the gate. Since the inner rings are under spring tension, their ridges stay in close contact with the lock body. At this stage, the ridges of the outer rings align with those of the inner rings, causing them to rotate together until the gates align and the lock opens. When the lock is in the open state, the longer ridges of the inner rings are inside the body, while the shorter ridges remain outside and can be pushed slightly downward. This is done by rotating the shackle 90 degrees and pushing it down. The shackle's teeth push the inner rings back slightly, but to do this, the teeth must not align with the gates, hence the need to rotate the shackle. The 90-degree rotation is required because that is where the notch allows the shackle to move downward. Once the inner rings are pushed down slightly, the outer ring ridges no longer engage with the inner rings, allowing the number rings to rotate freely. At this point, you can set your desired combination. When the shackle is released, the new combination is aligned with the gates, effectively changing the lock's code. That's how this type of lock operates. Knowing this, it becomes clear how to pick a lock like this. By applying tension to the shackle, you can feel for the gates, starting with the one that offers the most resistance. Additionally, since the inner ring has a longer ridge aligned with the gate, in some locks with low clearances, it's even possible to feel this ridge using thin plastic or paper to determine the combination. Some manufacturers add false gates to the inner rings to increase security, making them more suitable for bike locks. However, the components are simple and inexpensive to produce, which is why this design is often used in luggage locks. After all, it's primarily for securing zippers. In certain types of locks with number rings at the bottom, the trigger mechanism operates by pulling a lever into the cutout sections of the inner rings. When the lever aligns with these cutouts, it creates enough space for the locking bars to retract, releasing the shackle and unlocking the lock. Unfortunately, this design has a notable weakness. It can be bypassed using a thin piece of metal. By sliding the metal tool behind the lever and lifting it, the lock can be opened without needing to align the rings. This exploit works because there's extra space behind the lever, allowing it to move without fully engaging with the gates. But what about small key storage boxes? If you go to the trouble of using a secure, expensive metal lock, why would you store its key inside an insecure number lock box? Isn't that essentially the same as using a number lock on your door? Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, if you enjoy becoming more knowledgeable and learning new things every day, let me introduce you to an incredible tool that's perfect for curious minds like yours. Brilliant. Brilliant is an interactive learning platform with thousands of hands-on lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and even artificial intelligence. What sets Brilliant apart is its unique teaching approach. Rather than just watching videos, you'll engage in interactive exercises that help you truly understand and apply concepts. For example, their math courses don't just explain formulas, they show you how to build and use them in real-world scenarios. This hands-on method has been a game-changer for me, especially when tackling problems in engineering and design. If you're ready to unlock new skills and challenge your mind, head over to brilliant.org/Quasar-Ed or scan the QR code on the screen to start your free 30-day trial. And as a special bonus, you'll get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Finally, let's examine the last type of lock, a simplified version of the locks commonly used in safes. When I first encountered this lock, its mechanism puzzled me. How could multiple digits be entered using just a single dial? The answer lies in rotating the dial back and forth for each digit. This lock comes with a fixed combination key, usually listed on the back, meaning you cannot change the code. Like the first lock, the combination is built directly into the mechanism, but it all depends on the lock. There are other types of rotary locks that can be changed. The lock body is made of sheet metal, with the back cover secured by the bending edge, making it difficult to open without cutting through the casing. While the lock's strong body and steel shackle provide durability, it's the internal mechanism that determines its effectiveness. If we break open the lock, we find a plastic cover and housing that contain the working components. Inside, there are 3 discs with notches. One disc connects to the dial knob, while the other 2 discs rotate freely on a shaft separated by spacers. A spring at the shaft's end presses the discs together. When the notches on all 3 discs align, the locking lever falls into place, releasing the shackle. When the discs are misaligned, the lever rests on the edges of the discs, keeping the lock secure. At the opposite end of the locking lever, a spring-loaded metal tooth secures the shackle. When the shackle is pushed down, the angled portion of the tooth moves inward until it clicks into the shackle's notch, locking it in place. The mechanism for rotating the other 2 discs is straightforward. Each disc has a small cylindrical bump that protrudes from its edge. As the first disc rotates, its bump engages with the bump on the second disc, causing them to rotate together. When the second disc's bump engages the third disc, all 3 rotate as one. The combination for this lock is 24, 39, and 19, beginning with a clockwise rotation. To unlock it, start by rotating the dial clockwise until all the discs move, stopping at 24. At this point, the last disc's notch aligns with the locking lever. Next, rotate the dial counterclockwise. Since the bumps disengage during this motion, the first disc rotates freely until its bump re-engages the second disc. Continue counterclockwise to 39, aligning the second disc's notch. Finally, rotate clockwise again to 19, aligning the first disc's notch. With all the notches aligned, the locking lever falls into place, releasing the shackle. This simple yet effective mechanism is why similar locks are still used in safes. By adding false gates and extra discs, manufacturers can increase security. Picking this lock is relatively straightforward. By applying tension to the lever and listening for it to fall into the notches, you can determine the combination. This is why professional safecrackers often use stethoscopes to detect subtle clicks. However, this lock doesn't require such advanced skills. Due to the design of the tooth and the low tolerance of the sheet metal body, a simple shim, a small piece of metal, can be used to push the tooth inward and release the shackle. This technique is similar to opening improperly fitted doors with a credit card. If the door's latch isn't properly enclosed, the same bar that keeps it closed becomes a vulnerability. Through this exploration, we've learned a great deal about how combination locks work. It's important to remember that this video is for educational purposes. Regardless of how secure or insecure a lock may be, locks represent privacy, and tampering with someone else's property is both unethical and illegal. The locks shown in this video might differ in design and security depending on the brand. If you own a similar lock with enhanced security features or any other devices with interesting mechanisms, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching till the end, and I'll see you next time.